Property Brothers, tiny house hunting. Property virgins? Wait, hold on a second, is that a house hunting show too? It should be no surprise that HGTV has a stranglehold on the house hunting show's genre. I mean, their network does stand for home and garden television. I also didn't know that before writing the script, so this all makes so much more sense now. And it turns out that HGTV has some of the most popular shows in this genre, that being House Hunters and House Hunters International. If you don't know, in these shows, it typically finds a couple or a family who are trying to find a home within a specific budget and area. And I swear, half the time, one of their jobs is usually some ridiculous thing that sounds entirely made up. Hi, my name is Douglas Snaggleforth, and I'm looking for a house right in the budget of about $5.5 million. And what do you do for work, Mr. Snaggleforth? Yeah, I train butterflies to compete in the X Games. You know, off-roading, BMX, biking. The whole point of the show is they're just trying to make the experience fun. Like, they're trying to find the dream home for that specific couple. And instead of having this gigantic search and this crazy thing like it normally is when it comes to finding a house, they have 3 specific houses that they show to the couples, and always at the end of the show, they end up picking one of those 3 houses. And it's always the house that they're just a little bit too interested in purchasing. And I get it. You know, they're trying to find a house, so they want to find the one that they're most interested in. But something just always seems so fishy about it. Why did they always get one of the 3 houses? Were they forced in their contract to purchase one of those houses at the end no matter what? Maybe there's episodes that are unaired because out of those 3 houses, the couples didn't like any of them. The answer is much simpler than that. Most of the show is just fake or staged. Yeah, but not in the way that you think. Let me explain a little bit. So I first heard about the show being fake because somebody that I actually know was on House Hunters. I'll spare you most of the details, but their story was basically this. They had applied to be on a show maybe a year or so before they actually made it on the show, so they had already been well into their house search in the area that they wanted to live in. Why were they searching for a house if they were going to be on House Hunters? Isn't that the job of House Hunters, to find these 3 prospective houses for them to live in? And this is what leads me to my first point. Many of the people that are on the show have already purchased one out of those 3 houses and been living in it for a while. And in the case of the person that I knew, they had already been living in the house for about like 3 or 4 months before any filming for the show had been done. But what about the other houses, you might be asking? You know, on the show, they always show them 3 different houses, the one that they end up getting, and then 2 other ones. And what I found when researching this is usually the 2 other houses are just houses that are on the market, kind of in the same area for roughly the same price, just to keep everything consistent so that they can have an accurate comparison with the house that they already have. And the person that I knew on the show confirmed that this is exactly what they did for them. And for the house that they already own, since there is no purchase price of it, since they already own the house, they usually just put the list price or just put something that kind of makes sense with the other ones, so they might, you know, inflate that a little bit. Something else that I thought was so goofy about the episode with my friend is they removed all the furniture from their house, just so then when they were going through the house, getting a tour, and the real estate agent was showing them the property, it made it look like an empty or vacant house. So a crew from the show took all of their furniture, moved it into the garage, and then specifically were told not to film the garage just to not break this illusion and make it seem like it was an empty or vacant house. Another thing you might be asking is, what if the house is a multi-million-dollar house, like an absolute mansion? You know, there's not too many mansions that are on the market, or maybe in a specific area there's not many other mansions. And they don't want to lose out on any potential viewers of the show, so what they do a lot of times in these situations is just ask some of the neighbors or other people that have multi-million-dollar houses in the area if they can just use their house for the show. It is not on the market, it's not being sold, it's not currently being sold, but they just fake it. They just put these houses on the market for the show. I also found an article that talks about this exact situation happening. So there was someone named Annie who was trying to sell her home in Mexico, and her real estate agent thought it would be the absolute perfect home to feature on House Hunters International, the international version of the show. When I was attempting to sell my vacation home in a quiet resort town in Mexico, a realtor friend suggested that we contact the producers of House Hunters to see if they would consider using it for their international spinoff. The show had been filmed in the same area before, and the realtor had seen a notable increase in the interest in local real estate after the show had been aired. At this time, there was already a couple that was coming down to the area to actually buy another property. Annie's real estate agent devised a plan plan, almost to bait the people that were watching the show in, reel them in, and try to get them to purchase Annie's property just by getting it, exposure and getting it seen on television. Honestly, kind of a big brain tactic on the real estate agent's part. But this story is not over yet, and it gets a tad bit more juicy. The producers of the show typically want younger people featured, anybody that's in their 20s or 30s, rather than having every episode being older retirees. And just to their luck, the potential buyers that were coming down to Mexico was a couple in their 50s who had recently retired. So what do you think they did for that episode? Just ran with that couple even though they weren't exactly as young as they wanted. No, that would make too much sense. Why would they do that? Did they just scrap the episode altogether? No, that would be such a waste of time after getting this couple down here and preparing the properties. So what did they do? They literally hired a younger couple to play the older couple on TV just to make them look better. And after all of that, and they went through all that preparation and they hired this other couple, and this was in Mexico, and the couple lived in the States, they didn't even end up purchasing any of the properties. And this last article might be the most interesting one yet. Not only did this couple appear on the regular version of House Hunters, but they did on the international version as well. They got a double whammy. And in both versions of the show, the couple had already been living in the house before the show came around. Also, for the house that they purchased in the States, they had only been recently living in it. I think it said like maybe a month or two before House Hunters actually filmed. But for the international one, they had already been living in the house for like over a year and a half when the filming actually took place. Also, I want to add, this is the first article that I found where it actually stated that the buyers were paid for being on the show. It looks like they got about $500 for the regular version of the show and $1,500 for being on the international version, which is honestly a pretty good amount of money. But I would have thought that they would have gotten so much more money just because of the sheer volume that they pump out this show. And according to their Wikipedia page, this show has had over 1,700 individual episodes, and I don't really see any signs of stopping just because of how popular it is, especially with moms. And it might seem like I'm ranting or complaining about the show, and I don't want it to come off as that way. I think it honestly makes a lot more sense the way that they do it for houses that have recently closed, because it's a bit unreasonable to have the entire house search portrayed on television. It takes way too much time for that. But the fact that the couple had already been living in the house for over a year at that point just seems a little unreasonable to me. Like, I wonder how many other cases are just like this one. And this made me start thinking, I wonder how many times they've just pursued a specific property or asked a couple if they could be featured on the show, even though they had not just purchased their house and they just wanted that home just shown on the show. And they most likely find a cool property that they want to feature on the show for a couple of reasons. One, it was a case of something like the previous episode where the real estate agent just wanted to use this opportunity to make a shit ton of money and bring a bunch of exposure to that area or the real estate in that area. Two, they wanted to pump tourism in the area just because so many eyes are always on the show. It seems like such a free and easy way to do so. Or three, maybe they just wanted to show off some cool ass property that they found in the area. So some people might be saying, what does HGTV have to say about that? Do they even care that a lot of people know that most of their episodes are fake? No. Not really. HGTV has brought viewers enjoyment with House Hunters for 20 years, and we hope they will continue to enjoy the series. Not only for the entertainment value, but also for the practical home buying and selling knowledge that they gain from the viewing experience. House Hunters is about the journey to find the perfect home. The people you see in the series are real people who have searched for, negotiated, and paid for a home with their own money. They just move in and make it their own. We simply shorten the very lengthy process for television. And that's it. It's just about the entertainment. It doesn't matter how real, fake, or somewhere in the middle the show is. Even though most of the stuff that we see on the show just fudged a little bit for the camera. But this shouldn't come as a shock because most TV shows do this in one way or another. Let's take Pawn Stars, for example. Do you think the store that they shoot the show in is actually the real store? No, it's just a set. Well, I should say they did at one point shoot inside of the actual store, but because of how big the show has actually gotten, they had to create a duplicate set of the exact same store. So if you look at some things between shots, like some things don't match up on the wall or in the cases or the front door, but I won't get too much into that. Or how a lot of fast food commercials have people that dress the food so it can just look absolutely perfect for the camera. And many times they use ingredients that you shouldn't even eat, like putting glue inside of cheese for a pizza just so then it can be all ooey gooey and stretchy, or putting shoe polish on a turkey just so you can get that golden brown finish. I'm going a little bit off topic here, but pretty much just saying don't believe everything that you see on TV. Even though that pizza looks good as hell and I could probably vacuum that whole thing up in like 2 bites. maybe 3 bites. And that just about does it for this one. I really appreciate you making it to the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate you giving it a like, subscribe, so I can make more videos like this in the future. But if you'll excuse me, I'm going to be on the first episode of House Hunters Intergalactic, where I'm gonna buy the moon.